Morning, everyone. Once again, I'm Nicholas Williams. I'm the Vice President of Software for Devio Technology, and we're taking an innovative approach to blockchain. And this panel is about automation, which we've talked about a lot this weekend. So I think we're going to get into a little bit more of the strategy about when and where to automate to get the best impact. So I guess let's start with introductions from all of my esteemed panelists. Do you want to go first, sir?
It would happen as soon as you swallow, right?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
No. So I'm Wiley B. Oscar. I'm a manager at FedEx DataWorks. And a lot of my perspective today will come from just a combination of being at FedEx DataWorks, working on data engineering pipelines, also a lot of customer-facing consultations around the world. So you can imagine with a company like FedEx that has global reach and is a bellwether type of company, meaning if FedEx sees, say, not a lot of transportation movement from, let's say, India to Europe or from Europe to America or Canada, then that means that a lot of products aren't moving. Therefore, we're probably in some type of economic depression or slowdown. So because you have that level of reach, my clients are global. With that also, my own firm that I have, where I really focus on taking a lot of that intelligence and working with small and medium businesses to help them grow and understand, because they're at the greatest disadvantage, in my opinion, just in terms of mindset for the most part, and they don't have the resources, if you will. So, and I'm happy to be here, and also I'd like to say Happy Father's Day. If any of you are papas.
Happy Father's Day to all the fathers.
If you're a papas, you know, and want to also thank TechNet for bringing us here today.
Absolutely. I'm Kevin Haggart with WeConnect Nevada. We do voice, data, communications, fiber optic cabling for large commercial buildings and small ones as well. We do installations here in Vegas, but we do consulting and design anywhere else that people may need it, whether it's a new data center or building or conference room, whatever you might need. We do those types of things. Just happy to be here today, excited to be part of this panel, and thank TechNet and pass it off to Ravi over here.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ravi Teneti, Senior Vice President of Engineering at Jory AI. We focus on AI and automation solutions for healthcare industry, especially for healthcare finance operations, revenue cycle management operations. I've been in technology industry from past 20 years, working for Fortune 100 companies and also some of the fastest growing companies. My recent focus has been in AI in healthcare. I'm excited to be part of this panel today.
Great. So automation touches every part of a business, and that means there's a lot of optionality when it comes to what do you automate, when do you automate it, what is your priority. Automating a physical process is very different from automating a purely digital process. You could look at automating finances, automating human resource processes. Pretty much every business has some aspect of those. So my first question to you all is, how do you determine where to prioritize automation? What automation, and specifically in each of your different industries, where do you see the most impact to automation? Do you want to first again, Wiley?
Yeah, I'm right next to you, so I'll take that one. Yeah. I think, and I'll speak specifically from the customer experience perspective, and for small and medium businesses, micro, small, and medium. I think it's really first understanding whether you need to scale. Because some people decide and say that they want to scale, and there's really no need. They're scaling for the sake of scaling because the industry, and they're hearing around that they need to scale. But there are certain industries that there's really no need to do that. So I think it's up to the owners, up to the leaders to decide or determine whether they need to and where. And I think when you move on to the ones that do need to scale, I think it's really just assessing where your business is, assessing maybe where some of your bottlenecks are, and then dialing into some of those bottlenecks to see where you can remove a lot of the friction. From the customer experience perspective, how are you onboarding your customers? Do you have processes in place to actually do that? If you do not, if you do not, you need to assess that. You need to document it, standardize it by simplifying it, and you need to be able to monitor that with some type of customer feedback loops so that you can understand exactly where those needs are or what they may or may not be equipped to, what you may or may not be equipped to. And I think when you go through assessments like that, you begin to find out exactly where you may have some problem areas, some obstacles, some areas of challenge. And then most importantly, as you are doing this, really leaning into your FinOps, because many companies don't consider FinOps until like the last minute, and then it's really a bloated cost for you at that point. FinOps, if you aren't familiar with it, your financial operations. When you look at security, you look at your infrastructure. Just think of bringing in your business team, bringing in your IT team, and bringing in finance, and them being able to talk about where you currently are and how you can actually get to maybe a future state. What is it going to take financially? You can plan for these things up front so that you'll be equipped later down the line. And this is pretty easy for right now because of the technology that you have out there, applications, business intelligence tools. This is something that's really easy for even small businesses to be able to take advantage of.
Yeah, absolutely. As a company, we're kind of going through a scale process right now. I recently moved here from Montana, so I had a business there, and we're starting another business down here, or have started actually. We've been here for 4 years. And some of the challenges we have is just being in different locations, where as everybody was under one roof, we had all of our systems were not quite automated at the time. And so now we're growing into a lot of different systems on the cloud. Like, for example, for our bidding and estimating software, we've got to a program called Procore that we're using for that. And then we're putting in place some CRMs and then financial tools and all that just to track it. Because as you move into a space and you get more and more customers, if you want to have a good product and a good result that you're helping those customers, you need some way to track that. And basically every business right now, I mean, there's so many tools out there, especially for like cloud operations and stuff like that you can use and programs. It's actually an amazing time because you can take these big companies and the platforms that they have, and most of the times they have a program for your business or for a small business that you can use to, as you grow, you can buy more services from them and just keep that going. And the amount of data that you have to go back and look at other customers, remember all your customer touch points so that you can hit them multiple times a year, email lists, everything that you need to do. So yeah, it's just it's very important, I think, to get automated, and the technology these days is great, especially moving into AI a little bit. I know we use ChatGPT a lot, and where we use it for is just basically for customer ideas, customer personas. Let's say you want to build a persona of a person that's going to be a buyer, right? It'll kick out like a Jane Doe, lives, works, basically kind of gives kind of a certain demographic, something that you can use for target marketing and things like that. So there's just so many opportunities out there and good things. It's very important. I'll pass it off to Ravi.
So excellent thoughts. Let me bring a little bit of perspective from healthcare side, but these principles apply broadly to every industry as well, because when we talk about automation in the context of scaling, we are looking at how automation can help in scaling. The scenarios where automation is really applicable is when you have a process that is repetitive. So if the process is repeating, let's say 100 times today, if you are repeating that process in your organization, after a year, you're at least going to repeat it 10 times more, maybe 1,000 times. So that's the context of scaling, right? When you build automation for a repetitive process today, you have to ensure that the automation is going to help you to scale 10 times more in next 6 months to 1 year. That's one of the aspects. So, and in the healthcare context, I'm going to give you a specific example where large hospital systems have to do this patient eligibility verification when they schedule the appointment, and you provide them the insurance card, and you have to verify their benefits almost instantaneously, and that's a process that hospitals have to do several times a day. And as the health systems grow, you have to do it multiple times. I mean, you have to scale that process. So that is one of the areas where automation can really drive a lot of efficiency, right? Scaling aspect is one thing, and volume. So if you are processing a certain volume of transactions, it could be volume of data, number of transactions, and repetitively, then automation is the way to go, because humans cannot keep up on that volume. It's not best thing for humans to work on repetitive tasks and doing the same thing and again, because they can spend their efforts somewhere else, which is highly strategic. So in volumes, in healthcare space, if you are submitting claims, let's say hospital systems submit claims, a lot of claims every day. That volume increases, and if you are doing this manually and with a high volume, there is a risk of making errors. And the automation process can actually help you to, one, to handle the volumes, two, reduce the risk of making errors. So that is how automation, especially how we pick processes to right candidates, right processes for automation. I would say keeping in mind of this scalability aspect and volume and errors. So those are the processes that you would actually pick first.
Great answers. I'm just going to reflect some of those things I heard. You mentioned, do you actually need to scale? Which I wasn't thinking about, but that is an excellent question. It's actually something I've advised many small companies. I mean, it kind of depends on strategically what your company you want it to be. If you want a small company that just pays your bills and doesn't stress you out at the end of the day, you probably don't want to scale. There are absolutely niches all over the place for small mom and pop, micro firms to be successful for themselves. They're not going to end up with thousands of employees in a multinational organization, but that's okay. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that. And when it comes to actually automating for scale, as Ravi was saying, the frequency with which you do a task is really an important guide point there. If you do something 100 times a day, even if it only takes a minute, I've definitely had people I've spoken to where it's like, oh, this only takes a minute, it's no big deal. It's like, yeah, but if you have to do it thousands of times a year, that quickly becomes a lot of time. As on the other end of the spectrum, you might have a process that it takes a whole day and maybe you don't like it, like some auditing process or something, but you only have to do it once a year. It might not be as important to automate that. There's not as much time savings there. And one thing I heard, I think all of you mention, is that standardization kind of leads in to scale, to automation. And standardization especially helps with the error correction and detection. It makes the process really easy to teach new employees and really easy to track, and it makes your metrics better. So my next question, the mic's a little hot now, guys. My next question is, when you're scaling, what was it exactly? So strategically, when you look at what your, let's see, sorry, I forgot what my second question was. What was it? Do you guys remember? I sent them all a document, but I don't think anyone remembers.
No, well.
Yeah, give me a sec. You can riff on
Yeah,
what I
as
just
you
said.
think about it, I have a question though, right? Like, we oftentimes, well, first of all, shout out to security experts, right? Like, I don't think we talk about security enough, and that is a segue. I learned a lot from talking to Sean and Terry about security and the importance of it. And if you don't know much about that, you can maybe go back and look at some of the conferences. And I think Terry has a speech later today that she's giving around something like that. But you mentioned that you also infuse some AI into yours. And for me, the focus on AI for certain businesses, especially in the small and medium, small and medium space, is not a dire necessity for companies to run toward the AI space at the moment. You know, like I think companies feel pressure to say, I need to be a part of this whole AI trend and boom, but they don't understand how to get there. They don't understand the security vulnerabilities that they introduce. They don't understand so many of the different things. And to kind of lower the temperature on it, much AI is built into some of these devices, like the CRMs that you discussed when you talk about the customer experience and having that feedback loop. I think that's highly intelligent to be able to kind of build some of that in. But my question is, when we talk about optimization versus scaling, I think that those two words kind of get muddled together and they're vastly different. What are your opinions on like optimization versus scaling and the definition of those two?
Sure. Yeah, so on optimization, that's one of the big things that you kind of need to do first, right?
Yeah.
So with our business, we have to optimize our processes because right now it's us in the office, but where we're going is we want to have multiple people, more customers, everything we need to do. So right now we're trying to optimize all the processes in our business, right? So we have certain procedures, certain practices that we all do. It's like a recipe. And we have those all baked in so that now, once we have that in there, then we can scale that up to more people. So basically, I want to have the processes in place so when we do have to hire more people, we already have that process there. So as far as for hiring, and you just need to have a process because you're going to have those repetitive tasks that you're doing over and over and over when you're hiring more people. And if you have a system in place, it's way better than, say, me retraining every new hire to go through. So when we optimize, we put all of our stuff into like a standard operating procedure and everything like that for each role. Each role in our business is getting a very clear defined set of role and scope to their job. So we're doing that, and we're putting all that into our CRM system, and we're putting that into our other bidding software and things like that make it easy to grow. Because one of the challenges is there's only so much time in the day. I don't know, any of you guys that have your own businesses probably have at some point went through the thing where you're working 20 hours a day and you're trying to figure out how to do everything. And you're just limited then by how much you can put into it. So having that optimization is super important for when you want to reach out and scale that up later.
And that actually leads into my second question really well, is sometimes you have the luxury to sit back and look at your organization, your process, and decide, okay, where am I going to focus on optimization or automation next? But a lot of times, more frequently, I'd say, just changes in conditions kind of force your hand on something. You know, it could be something good, like you catch a tiger by the tail, so to speak, and all of a sudden you have a lot more demand for your services. Or it could be some kind of disruption to your industry, like the supply chain gets disrupted, or inputs, you know, like gasoline costs spike, or some other input cost spikes all of a sudden. And so how would you guys how would you guys look at automation for making the organization more robust to deal with those kinds of changes? And I guess let's start with you first, Ravi.
Yes, absolutely. I think your question connected to the points that Wiley made: automation, optimization, AI. These are all pretty important aspects to consider when you are trying to bring automation into your organization. So one of the things that we have to consider first is what is our standard workflow that we are trying to automate, right? The place to start is that workflow. If that workflow is pretty standard, straightforward, rule-based, you could just automate it and optimize it, and it serves the purpose. And on the point that Wiley brought up earlier, there's AI-based automation. We do a lot of AI-powered automation, but the question is, do you really need it, right? You don't have to bring AI in every scenario. There are situations where you can design the solution without AI. Just because there is a cool technology out there, you're not going to bring it. So if you have a need to scale really, and if that process needs to learn, and that is where AI-powered automation, intelligence automation makes sense. But if it is a straightforward workflow, then the optimization process, you automate it and optimize it, and it serves the purpose. And another aspect to consider in terms of automation when you're bringing automation is you are not going to do a big bang implementation. Here is my process, and I'm just going to automate end-to-end and deploy. And it's going to be a huge change to the people, and it's going to be a huge impact to the organization. So to your question, Nick, I would recommend first starting with pilot, some pilot implementations. Taking a small piece of the whole process and try to automate it. And then do incremental improvements on it and phased approach. So that is a way to scale the process of automation, and also ensuring that you are ready for changes as well, because the processes that you're automating are not going to stay static for a while. It's going to be dynamic. There are going to be changes every time, and then you have to go back and change your automation process. So that phased implementation process, starting with pilot and incrementing, that is a right way to approach in a lot of organizations and a lot of scenarios.
No, I think that's an excellent point. You have to have a need for it, right? I think that what Wiley was saying, where you just run to AI because it's a new buzzword, is not the thing to do. You got to have a need for it in your business, and something that is tangible. And you need to have some way to collect data for whatever AI that you have going into that's going to be usable for whatever situation you may have. So yeah, I think it's important to note that, doing a small test thing, or taking it a few steps at a time and see hey, this really produces a great result with our workflow and everything like that, and it has some kind of tangible, measurable result that you can see from it, and then you can scale that thing up. Because if you don't, just running to it because it's AI, it is definitely a big buzzword, and I see that all big corporations, everybody's using AI because everybody wants to be, I don't know, a part of it or whatever, but we want it to be functional, right, as a business owner, and something that you can use to, not only help your customers, but also help your business and your bottom line, not just to mention it and say it just to say it because I want to have AI.
Right. No, I think I agree with many of the points, and I think that implementing business intelligence tools would be are critical at this point in this juncture, because everything is data driven. You know, it's so data driven, which is why there's an intense need to have security around a lot of these things. But these business intelligence tools, whether it's something like a Tableau or any of those competitors, there's just so many business intelligence tools that will allow you as a team, as an owner, as a leadership organization, to have a better perspective of your entire org. You understand where your loopholes, or you're able to just monitor where things are happening, and you're able to predict where your business is going to be. So if I'm able to have some of these tools in there, and I'm able to see that, hey, we're going to be able to, let's say we're going to grow based on adoption of customers or clients or some type of adoption, we want to be able to scale to that, but we see through the analytics that we're going to grow within the next 2 years. That allows us the opportunity to start planning for some type of scale. That is vital for every business owner to be able to see. I don't know any leader or any business owner that don't want access to this level of data right now. You've always needed it to run your business. I think, Robbie, you mentioned it earlier, the human brain is just not able to process the sheer amount of data it takes to really scale and grow a business without automation. So we know automation is critical. You need it, right? You just need it. And I think business intelligence tools are absolutely the way that you can really get there. Whether you have it now, if you're starting, you definitely need to do it. You need to build it in now. And if you don't have it, they integrate with most things where you can start leaning into it, and I think it'll open up a vast new world for whomever didn't have it before.
I think all of you in some way or another mentioned standardization, and I think if you really have a standardized process, you have it written down somewhere. I want to make that very clear, because especially as you automate, yourself and your employees are going to not be doing that process manually anymore, which means necessarily there's a little bit of knowledge and practice lost there. So you don't want to lose that completely, and so documentation is very important. And then metrics, like you're saying, Wiley, you need to have some measure of the success or lack of success of a process, and it needs to be empirical. That's, I think, absolutely key to driving your business intelligence and things like that. It's very possible to come up with so-called vanity metrics that might make the C-suite happy, but they don't really empirically get to what's happening in the business, and you don't want those. You want real solid metrics that are measuring something, real in your business, whether this process is succeeding or failing. And that's critical.
What's the vanity metric? What is that?
Oh, you never heard that before?
No, I've never heard of vanity metric.
I'm trying to think of a good example, but it's just it's like a metric that isn't really empirical. It's more like kind of how the C-suite feels, sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, so it doesn't really get to the heart of the problem, right? It's just kind of like, oh, what color is our brochure today? Oh, the CEO really doesn't like that color. Like that's not useful, really. I mean, it might be important from a marketing point of view. I'm not saying color design does not matter. Don't misunderstand me. But yeah, you want to measure the actual result of the process, not something that's kind of tangential.
I got you.
Yeah.
So to all leaders, this is what your teams are saying about you. Exactly. You just like the color. They just want to see the color. But if your business intelligence tools are doing the proper job, then that data is not vain.
Exactly.
It should not be.
It should not be. Yeah.
If it is, you need to toss that tool.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't. Yeah, what tool you use is there's lots of tools out there, but you need to be empirical. Take a scientific approach to your business. Yeah,
all right.
I'm surprised you guys haven't heard that before.
So on the KPIs, right? So you made a
KPIs,
very
exactly.
valid point on KPIs.
You've heard this in your KPIs, Robbie.
So when you're talking about KPIs, the success of automation actually increases when you connect it to the strategic goals of the organization.
Absolutely.
Connected to the KPIs of the organization. It's not a siloed, independent process that a department actually automates. It increases the efficiency and productivity of the organization and increases the customer satisfaction in a lot of areas. For example, in healthcare space, if I am putting automation to process eligibility, insurance eligibility process quite faster, the patients who are coming to the hospitals will be very happy. It's a customer satisfaction, and ultimately we are helping patients and care. That is what we are focused on. So how do you connect your automation efforts to the higher strategic goals of the organization is critical. And that is one of the important factors that I would say.
So I actually have a framework I could describe, and this is maybe secret sauce that I try to go for in every organization I work with. There's, if you guys have heard of continual improvement,
Yes.
so yeah, you can get into this positive feedback loop where you have strategy, research and development and tooling, and then operations, right? And if those can inform each other in a positive cycle, and yeah, each branch is different, right? The strategy tells stories about what the company needs. Research and development produces quality tools for operations. Operations reports empirical KPIs back to strategy. And if that wheel is turning well, you basically have an engine of improvement in your business. So it will gradually kind of organically increase in quality.
I was just going to
Yeah.
mention, so I talked a little bit about my business and what I'm trying to scale, but I want to look at my customer side. And so one of the things we do as far as data is for the consulting and, say, the communication space, we put in network systems for people. And so the data that they're going to give me when we come in, whether they need to do a network upgrade or not, whether it's how many comm rooms they might have throughout their building, how big their organization is, and they'll have specific data that shows how much traffic is being flowed on their fiber optic between one point to another point, right? Or how much data is being flowed to their wireless access points or their desktop locations or things like that. And so this is the data that we need, and I think if the customer can have that in a spot, they know that when they're in the process of scaling, when they need to upgrade their network some more. And so they can call us and give us these things and say, hey, we're trending on more and more data being transferred over these lines and these lines and these lines. And we can proactively go in there and give them an upgrade plan and say, hey, it's time to upgrade your gear. It's time to upgrade your equipment because for all the different the things that you're doing, you're becoming a little outdated. Or if you see that there's a trend in the traffic flows on their things, that you can get ahead of that and install that before it comes like a bottleneck where it's really holding something back in their organization. And that could be anything that they're adding as far as increasing their data flows, right? They got to talk to the servers from one end of the building to the other, right? And if maybe their file sizes are growing real big, or maybe an automation that they're putting in place is putting a more taxing thing onto their network. So that's one of the areas where just having the data in any kind of industry or anything is important, because once you have something that's measurable, you can do something to counteract it.
Exactly. Yeah. Until you have something that's measurable, you're kind of just guessing.
Yeah, if you can use, I'm sorry.
I was going to open it to questions, but make your comment first.
Oh, okay, just real quick. If you can use that data to, especially from the customer experience perspective, to personalize those experiences with your customers, I mean that's really vital, right? If your customers are going to give you permission to contact them, and when I say permission to contact them, if they are taking the time to put in their phone number, if they're taking the time to put in their email address and things like that, and if they have the option of unsubscribing or stepping out or opting out, these are all, to me, ways and methods to get in to use this data to actually help a lot of your clients. When you look at the healthcare space, when you look at some of the data you just mentioned, I think we were talking about this earlier. I was talking with someone, I believe it was Reggie or maybe Ty. No one wakes up in the morning saying, I'm an idiot, and I want to be an idiot today. Like, even the people who aren't at their best they wake up possibly wanting to feel like their very best. So as a company, if you're able to educate, or if you're able to empower your customers to feel like they're or to help them become smarter, like you're doing with some of the things that you just mentioned, I think that that's a great way to use automation to help you scale your business in terms of bringing in customers. Because at the end of the day, you should be scaling to increase the experience and increase profit. That's one of the reasons as a business that you are trying to scale at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
You know, increase efficiencies, reduce churn, reduce redundancies, reduce repetition, and to help grow your business at the very end.
Absolutely. So yeah, I wanted to open it to the audience real quick while we have a few minutes left. If you guys have any questions. Yes.
Kevin, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Given you were you're going towards a more customer-centric matter, do you mainly get yours from RFPs or RFQs? If customers don't understand the data aspect of it, it's tell you about data speeds and transitions, how do you?
So there's multiple ways we get our customers. We get it through a lot of the bid process and RFPs and stuff. But some of our existing customers, for example, we take care of Moen's warehouse here. And so we work closely with them and their whole network team. So once our system is in place, we have a thing. We check in with them almost monthly, just to see where certain things are. How's your traffic doing? What's going on this? What are your pain points? Anything like that. And so they're giving us that feedback almost instantly, which is nice. And then we put that into our system and just make sure we're tracking that, right? Because they're a high value customer for us. And we do that with all of our customers, but having that data in there so we know when to touch them again and when to talk to them about maybe doing an upgrade or maybe put it in the budget for next year. It looks like your traffic's going up. We should probably have some kind of project in there because they're an automated warehouse that houses all their like faucets and things like that, and then they distribute it. So you don't want to have a big thing that interrupts their production, right? Because this is a 24-hour facility up there. So the longer you can get something ahead of it and you can start planning for it, the better. Yeah, I don't know if that totally answers it, but
Yes and no, so I got a second.
Yeah.
So having a piggy off of what Robbie said, he was talking about the KPIs of the
Mhm.
organization. So as a vendor, you'll be more successful if you be able to tie it to their actual norms. So do you evaluate what the mission of the organization is to figure out how your company can gain to it?
yes, absolutely. And so, yeah, on the because we actually do the actual installation. We do the physical installation of the network, all the wiring stuff. And then also on the consulting end of that, we want to, this is where I think more you're going to, that they'll give us what their needs are or what their values, KPIs, all the stuff that they have, and we'll try and tailor our growth into their organization through those, if that makes sense.
And
Thank you.
that feedback interaction from customers is invaluable. Every business needs that as much as they can. Yeah, and bring it back around to AI. I think that is one good place where these chatbots can be useful. If someone wants to customize and stuff, the chatbots, they don't have much persistent memory, so you have to be smart about when the customer tells you, I want my interaction more customized this way, you have to persist that in your organization somehow, through CRM or some kind of tool, depending on what industry you're in. But a chatbot that can read that and be aware of it in real time to interact with your customer on demand is great. But you need to make sure you're capturing that feedback and it's actually bubbling up to the actual humans as well. Is there another question? Yeah.
One of the things that I see on the technology side, not often, but sometimes, is solutions having to do with automation or data where the conclusion, when you look at it logically, doesn't make any sense. And I call that the sniff test. Do you have any hints for how you pass the sniff test?
Interesting. So okay, let's combine that with closing remarks. Yeah, how do you know if the result of an automated process just smells funny. Any advice on that? If it just doesn't seem sane?
I think my opinion is that is where the evaluation of and the design of the solution matters. If you are using regular robotic process automation, which is very straightforward and results are very straightforward, and you will not see any difference in the result that you expect. The problem that you are saying particularly comes in AI-powered automations where the data that the algorithm is trained on
Squirrely.
is really, not in alignment with the problem that you're solving. In that case, that problem arises. My short answer would be process evaluation, solution design, and training the automation on the right data, because you are embedding intelligence. It's not human intelligence, it's technology intelligence, so there is always scope for mistakes. So there is more human intervention needed to solve this problem.
Or maybe it doesn't have access to all the data it needs. When we say training,
Yeah.
maybe, a lot of business owners don't want to give it access to everything. Like, I don't want to give everything. Well, that's a problem for it, right? It can't learn properly.
Well, it needs to focus on the right data, and the data needs to be clean, right?
Yeah.
You guys all know JIGO, like garbage in, garbage out. If you train an AI on garbage, it's going to be garbage AI.
All right, well done, panelists. Thank you for offering us some
Thank you.
reliable solutions.